God has killed over 24 million people in the Bible. Satan, 10. Pause. Let that ratio sink in. Your pastor knows this. Your priest knows this. Your Sunday school teacher definitely knows this. But they'll never tell you. Because once you see the spreadsheet I'm about to show you, once you count every flood victim, every plague death, every divinely ordered genocide, you can't unsee what the Bible actually says about the God you worship. I spent 3 months going through every single verse, armed with a calculator, a King James Bible, and a growing sense of horror. What started as curiosity became an obsession. Does the God of love have a body count? And if so, how high? The answer broke my brain, and it's about to break yours. Who's the real villain of the Bible? Type hidden in the comments. If you've always suspected something was off about the Old Testament, you're not alone. You're not crazy, you're just awake. Here's where this gets personal. I was raised Christian, memorized verses, won Bible trivia. Never once did anyone mention that God killed more people than every human dictator combined. They taught me John 3:16, for God so loved the world, but skipped 1 Samuel 6:19, where God kills 70 people for looking inside a box. They preached about divine mercy, but never explained why bears mauled 42 children for calling someone bald. Yes, that's in your Bible. 2 Kings 2:23-24. Look it up. This isn't some atheist hit piece. This is about reading what's actually written in the book that 2.4 billion people call holy. The same book that shaped Western civilization, influenced laws, started wars, and defined morality for centuries. But there's a dark pattern hidden in plain sight. A pattern so disturbing that when you map it out, when you see the data visualized, when you count the bodies, something inside you shifts. That resistance you're feeling right now, that tightness in your chest, that's cognitive dissonance. It's what happens when facts collide with faith, and we're just getting started. Because here's what nobody talks about. The God of the Bible doesn't just kill bad people. He kills children, babies, entire civilizations. His angels are weapons of mass destruction. His floods are extinction events. His plagues make pandemics look like allergies. And before you say, but that's the Old Testament God, stop. Christians worship one God. You don't get to cherry pick. Either he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, or he's not. You can't have it both ways. If this video found you during a crisis of faith, that's not a coincidence. If you've been questioning lately, wondering why the God of love reads like the God of war, you're exactly where you need to be. The algorithm doesn't make mistakes, neither does truth. So today, we're doing what your religious leaders won't. We're opening the book, reading the verses they skip, and counting the bodies they ignore. We'll explore why God's death toll makes Satan look like a saint. We'll discover what first-century Christians tried to do about this problem, and why. They were silenced. We'll see how ancient writers portrayed their deity as a divine dictator, and why modern believers can't admit it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Mark Twain said, if Christ were here today, there is one thing he would not be, a Christian. This isn't about destroying faith, it's about confronting the truth, because real faith should be able to handle real questions. And if it can't, maybe it's not faith, maybe it's just fear dressed up as devotion. Before we dive into the spreadsheet of divine destruction, and trust me, it's extensive, hit subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, but because what you're about to discover has been hidden for a reason. And once you see it, you'll understand why they never wanted you to count. Let's unveil what 2,000 years of theology have tried to bury. Ready to meet the real God of the Bible? Let me tell you about the first person who tried to solve this problem. 144 AD, a wealthy ship owner named Marcion reads the Old Testament and has a mental breakdown. He can't reconcile the genocidal God of Israel with the loving Father that Jesus preached. His solution, revolutionary. These are two different gods. The Old Testament God, violent, jealous, demanding blood sacrifice. The New Testament God, merciful, forgiving, teaching love. Marcion said what millions of Christians think, but won't admit. These can't be the same deity. Marcion's discovery, 144 AD, Old Testament God, war, genocide, plague, punishment, New Testament God, love, forgiveness, healing, grace. His conclusion, two different gods. Church's response, heretic, excommunicated. Why? He was right, and it threatened everything. The early church panicked. If Marcion was correct, their entire theology collapsed. So they did what power structures always do with inconvenient truth. They buried it. Marcion was excommunicated. His writings burned, his followers persecuted. The church forced a single narrative. One God, mysterious ways, don't ask questions. But Marcion wasn't alone. The Gnostics saw the same problem. They called the Old Testament God the demiurge, a false deity, a cosmic tyrant masquerading as the true God. They believed Jesus came to free us from this pretender. If you've ever wondered why God seems schizophrenic in the Bible, you're thinking what the Gnostics thought. They just had the courage to say it out loud. Even Judaism struggled with this. The ancient rabbis created elaborate explanations, divine justice, mysterious ways, higher purposes we can't understand. But explanations don't resurrect the dead. Theology doesn't comfort the mothers in Egypt whose firstborns were slaughtered for Pharaoh's stubbornness. Notice how every religious institution has the same response to God's kill count. Don't focus on those parts. Context makes it okay. God's ways are higher. Who are you to question? It's not theology. It's damage control. Still comfortable? Good. Comfort is the enemy of truth. If your faith can't handle historical facts, it's not faith, it's indoctrination. Let's keep digging. I opened my Bible, started in Genesis, ended in Revelation, counted every death, plague, and divinely ordered massacre. The Excel spreadsheet crashed twice. Genesis 7. The flood, 20 million dead, conservative estimate. Exodus 12:29. Every Egyptian firstborn, 500,000 till plus. Dead numbers, 1649. Plague for complaining, 14,700 dead 2 Kings, 1935. Angel of death in one night, 185,000. Dead, but here's where it gets sick. Crime versus divine punishment, looking in the ark, 50,000 dead taking a census, 70,000 dead complaining. About food, 14,700 dead mocking baldness, 42 children eaten by bears picking up sticks on a Saturday, stoned to death. Does the punishment fit the crime? This pattern destroys any claim of divine justice. These aren't proportional responses. They're the actions of a cosmic psychopath with unlimited power and zero impulse control. Now let's count Satan's kills. Job's family, 10 people with God's permission. That's it, that's the list. The ultimate evil killed 10 people. The God of love, 24 million. If any human leader had this death toll, we'd call them history's greatest monster. But when God does it, we call it divine justice. Your brain is doing backflips right now, trying to justify this. But they were sinful. But God has the right. But context, stop, read that number again. Or 1,600,000 plus deaths. That's not justice. That's genocide with a halo. You know what's really happening? The ancient Hebrews created God in their image, a Bronze Age warlord who solved problems through violence. Their survival depended on tribal loyalty and absolute obedience. So they projected that brutality onto the cosmos and called it holy. They conceived of a deity who would fight for them, destroy their enemies, enforce a harsh, arbitrary moral code. Why? Because that's what they did. Modern Christians, they worship a sanitized version, pretending the genocide God magically became the grace God without any character development in between. They smooth over these inconvenient truths with theological gymnastics, hoping you'll never look too closely at the raw data. You're angry right now. Maybe at me. Maybe at these numbers, maybe at the God you thought you knew. That anger, that's your programming, fighting against the data. Let it happen. Type counting if you're going to check these numbers yourself. Type denial if you think I'm making this up. Either way, the Bible is waiting for you. But wait, it gets darker, because once you see God's death toll, you start noticing other patterns that reveal what's really being worshipped here. Hidden in plain sight, the Hebrew name Yahweh Sabaoth appears 285 times in your Bible. Translation: Lord of armies, not metaphorical, not poetic, real armies, with real swords, creating real corpses. This title, it isn't casual. It's a declaration of his primary identity, his domain, his function. God's names reveal everything. You Sabaoth, Lord of armies, 225, a commanding general, not a gentle shepherd. El Shaddai, God of destruction. Ancient roots link this to mountains, symbolizing crushing. Overwhelming power, consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29, a devouring, purifying, yet obliterating force. Man of war. Exodus 15:3, a warrior God, triumphant in bloodshed. Jealous God. Exodus 34:14, a possessive deity, intolerant, demanding. Prince of Peace. Where is that in any of these names? Now decode the symbolism, because it runs deep. Blood sacrifice was required for forgiveness. A ritual repeated constantly, brutal, sacred, necessary. Firstborn sons had to be redeemed with blood, a haunting echo of primal fear and divine ownership. The temple, it reeked of burning flesh daily, a visceral reminder of sin's price and God's demands. And the ultimate price? Even Jesus had to bleed to death to satisfy this God, a final, ultimate blood offering. Every other major religion on earth, they evolved past literal blood sacrifice. They transcended it, moved on, recognized its barbarity, except Christianity, it just spiritualized it. The wine is still blood. The bread is still flesh. You're still performing ritual cannibalism every Sunday, a sanitized echo of ancient brutality wrapped in linen and liturgy, believing it brings you closer to God. The Aztecs sacrificed humans to appease their gods. We call them barbaric, bloodthirsty, primitive. The ancient Hebrews did the same. Animals. And, on occasion, humans. Just ask Jephthah's daughter. An often ignored, chilling narrative. But we call it holy. We build churches, not condemnations. The difference? Marketing. A masterful, millennia-long rebranding campaign. Carl Jung would have a field day with this. We've collectively imagined a cosmic father who murders his children, then demands they love him, or he'll torture them forever. This isn't just a theological problem. It's a psychological horror. That's not divinity. That's Stockholm Syndrome with stained glass windows, where the captive learns to love their terrifying captor. Here's what's clicking into place. The Bible isn't hiding God's nature, it's revealing it. With chilling consistency, every genocide, every plague, every bizarre death penalty, it's showing you exactly who you're worshipping. An ancient war deity from a tribal violent past, rebranded as universal love for a modern, supposedly enlightened audience. Even the numbers tell a story. A disturbing cyclical pattern. Days to create 7. Seals of destruction, 7 trumpets of death, 7 bowls of wrath, creation and destruction. The same God, the same pattern. A death cult disguised as salvation. Which revelation just shattered you the most? The terrifying death count? The relentless blood obsession? Or realizing you've been worshipping a war god masked by centuries of theological spin? Drop it below. We're all processing this together. Now what? You've seen the numbers, faced the death toll, recognized the war god hiding behind the love songs. Your faith is having a panic attack. Let it. Because here's the transformation nobody expects. This revelation doesn't have to destroy your spirituality. It can finally set it free beyond the Bronze Age deity. Stop worshipping the Bronze Age war god. Stop clinging to a deity who demands genocide and arbitrary slaughter as if that's worthy of reverence. Instead, start embodying the actual teachings of Christ. A figure who suspiciously never ordered a single genocide, never commanded a plague, never sanctioned tribal war. Notice something. Jesus never endorsed the violence of the Old Testament. When his disciples wanted to call down fire on a village, he rebuked them, said they didn't know what spirit they were of. When Peter raised a sword to defend him, Jesus healed the victim and told Peter to put the sword away. It's almost like he was trying to reform the toxic theology of his time, offering a radically different path, one rooted in compassion, not conquest. Old Testament, God versus Jesus. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Turn the other cheek, offer the other cloak. Stone the adulteress. Let him without sin cast the first stone. Destroy your enemies utterly. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. 185,000 dead in one night. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Same God. You decide, because the contrast is too stark to ignore, activating your inner divinity. Here's your new practice. Instead of worshipping a cosmic killer, instead of bending your knee to a deity of fear, activate your own divinity. This isn't just poetic fluff. It's neurological fact. You have 40,000 neurons in your heart, a second brain that radiates a stronger electromagnetic field than the one in your skull. You produce DMT, a molecule linked to mystical experience. You are literally built for transcendence, for connection, for inner wisdom. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Not as a metaphor, neurologically, biologically, it's a fundamental reality. A direct line to peace, to unconditional love. From today, stop fearing divine punishment. It was Bronze Age crowd control, not universal truth. Let go of the terror that's governed your spiritual life. Start trusting your inner knowing. That compass inside you, it's more divine than any blood-drenched commandment. Question every teaching that requires blood. Why would a loving God demand such grotesque atonement? Reject the death cult, break the chain, embrace the mystics who found God within. They didn't obey the war god. They transcended him. They found peace not through fear, but through inner liberation. This isn't about becoming an atheist. This isn't abandoning spirituality. It's about evolving past spiritual Stockholm syndrome, where you've been conditioned to love and defend your tormentor. You can keep the wisdom, the insights, the transformative power of ancient texts, but lose the warlord. You can embrace the Christ consciousness, radical love, unshakable peace, spiritual sovereignty, and finally, drop the cosmic dictator. You've been in an abusive relationship with a violent deity. Today, you're filing for spiritual divorce and reclaiming your agency. The real God, the source of actual unconditional love, has been inside you all along, just waiting for you to see past the propaganda. What changes when you stop fearing eternal punishment and start embodying unconditional love? What opens up when you realize the death-dealing God was never real, just ancient propaganda with really good PR? 24,600,000 plus deaths. That number should haunt every sermon, every Sunday school class, every Bible study. But it won't. Because comfortable lies are easier than uncomfortable truths. Because admitting it would unravel centuries of carefully constructed theology, and they're not ready for that. But you're different. You counted with me, faced the spreadsheet, saw behind the stained glass. You can't unknow what you now know. The veil has been torn. What if the real test of faith isn't believing without evidence, but having the courage to reject a toxic God, even if that God comes wrapped in scripture and defended by a billion-dollar institution? What if the real blasphemy isn't questioning God, it's worshipping a genocidal deity and calling it love, while your soul screams in cognitive dissonance? Share this with someone still trapped in spiritual Stockholm syndrome, someone who's been taught to fear questioning their entire life, someone who needs to know doubting a violent God isn't losing faith, it's finding sanity, finding integrity, finding their own truth. Your share might be their liberation, the first crack in their stained glass prison. The Bible doesn't hide God from us. It reveals exactly what happens when ancient humans, steeped in tribal warfare and primitive fears, create deities in their own violent image. It's not divine revelation. It's psychological projection wearing a halo. But here's the divine plot twist. You don't need that God. You never did. That external, angry, punitive deity. A construct, a control mechanism, the real sacred source, the one of infinite love, boundless compassion, unshakable peace. It doesn't demand blood, doesn't commit genocide, doesn't solve problems with plagues. It is not outside you, demanding obedience through terror. It's been waiting inside you this whole time. Silent, patient, actually holy, your spiritual evolution, before fearing a violent deity, bowing to external control, living in spiritual terror, after embodying actual love, trusting your inner wisdom, living in radical freedom. The Bible, not an infallible blueprint, but an archive of ancient trauma and evolving consciousness. Your role, a modern mystic seeing through the marketing, an awakened soul leading others toward authentic spirituality. Death, told truth, spiritual divorce. Awaken the divine. Next week, every contradiction in the Gospels, the chart that seminary students can't explain. If the death toll shocked you, wait until you see Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John disagree on basically everything. Subscribe if you're ready for the biblical archaeology they don't teach in church, ready for the uncomfortable truths that lead to true freedom. Hit the bell to join the exodus from toxic theology and step into your sovereign spiritual power. Comment counting if you're checking these numbers yourself. Validating the data. Comment evolving if you're ready to worship something better than a Bronze Age war god. Something that resonates with your deepest truth, the greatest revelation. You don't need permission from any institution or ancient text to leave an abusive deity. Your own conscience is your highest authority. Consider this video your permission slip, your declaration of spiritual independence. The truth will set you free, but first, it'll piss you off. Welcome to freedom and welcome home to yourself.